Long ago, in the great Persian Empire, there was a powerful king named Xerxes. He ruled over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Ethiopia. His palace was filled with gold, silver, rich curtains, shining marble floors, and servants dressed in fine clothes. He loved showing his power and wealth to everyone. One day, King Xerxes decided to hold a grand feast. It lasted for 180 days. Yes, 6 whole months. Princes, nobles, and military leaders came from all parts of the kingdom. They ate the best food, drank from golden cups, and admired the king's greatness. At the same time, Queen Vashti held a feast for the women in the royal palace. On the 7th day of the feast, the king drank too much wine. Feeling proud and careless, he commanded his servants to bring Queen Vashti before him, wearing her royal crown, so everyone could see her beauty. The queen was very beautiful. But Queen Vashti refused. The king was shocked. No one said no to the king. His face burned with anger. His advisors feared that if other women heard what Vashti had done, they too would stop respecting their husbands. So they advised the king to remove Vashti as queen and choose another woman in her place. And so, Queen Vashti was removed. After some time, when the king's anger had cooled, his servants suggested something unusual. They said, "Let us search the entire kingdom for beautiful young women. Bring them to the palace, and the one who pleases the king will become the new queen." The king liked the idea. Across the empire, young women were taken to the palace. Among them was a Jewish girl named Hadassah, better known as Esther. Esther was an orphan. Her father and mother had died when she was young. She was raised by her cousin Mordecai, who loved her like a daughter. They were Jews living in exile in Persia. Mordecai worked at the king's gate. Esther was beautiful, but more than that, she had a gentle and humble spirit. When Esther was taken to the palace, Mordecai told her, "Do not reveal that you are Jewish." For 12 months, the women went through beauty treatments, oils, perfumes, and special preparations. Finally, it was Esther's turn to go before the king. When King Xerxes saw Esther, he was captivated. She found favor in his eyes more than all the other women. He placed the royal crown on her head. Esther became queen. Meanwhile, Mordecai continued working at the king's gate. One day, he overheard 2 officers plotting to assassinate the king. Mordecai quickly informed Queen Esther, who told the king, giving credit to Mordecai. The matter was investigated, and the officers were executed. The event was written in the royal records, but Mordecai was not rewarded at that time. Now there was a man in the kingdom named Haman. He was proud, powerful, and second in command to the king. The king commanded everyone to bow down to Haman. But Mordecai refused. He would not bow. This made Haman furious. When he discovered that Mordecai was a Jew, his anger grew even stronger. He didn't want to punish Mordecai alone, he wanted to destroy all the Jews in the empire. Haman went to the king and said, "There is a group of people scattered throughout your kingdom. Their laws are different. They do not obey the king's laws. It is not good to let them remain. If it pleases the king, issue a decree to destroy them." The king, not knowing these were Esther's people, agreed. He gave Haman his signet ring to seal the decree. Letters were sent throughout the empire. On a certain day, all Jews, young and old, women and children, were to be killed. When Mordecai heard the news, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes. Throughout the Jewish communities, there was great mourning, fasting, weeping, and wailing. When Esther heard that Mordecai was in distress, she sent someone to ask what was wrong. Mordecai sent back a copy of the decree and told her, "You must go to the king and beg for mercy for your people." Esther was afraid. She replied, "Anyone who enters the king's presence without being summoned will be put to death, unless the king extends his golden scepter. And I have not been called to see the king for 30 days. Then Mordecai sent a message that would change everything. Do not think that because you are in the palace you will escape. If you remain silent at this time, deliverance will come from somewhere else, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows if you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Esther's heart trembled. She realized this was not an accident. Maybe God had placed her in the palace for this very moment. She sent back a message, "Go, gather all the Jews and fast for me for 3 days. I and my servants will fast also. Then I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." For 3 days, they fasted. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes. Her heart pounded as she walked toward the throne room. The doors opened. The king sat on his throne. She stepped forward. Everyone held their breath. Would she live, or die? The king looked at her. And then, he extended the golden scepter. Esther was safe. "What is it, Queen Esther?" the king asked. "Even up to half my kingdom, it will be given to you." But Esther was wise. She did not immediately reveal her request. Instead, she said, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared." The king agreed. At the banquet, the king again asked Esther her request. But she invited them to another banquet the next day. Haman left the palace that night filled with pride. But when he saw Mordecai at the gate, still refusing to bow, his joy turned to rage. At home, Haman boasted to his wife and friends about his power and wealth. But he added, "All this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see Mordecai sitting at the king's gate." His wife suggested, "Build a gallows 75 feet high and ask the king to hang Mordecai on it." Haman loved the idea. He ordered the gallows to be built. But that very night, the king could not sleep. Instead of music, he ordered the book of records to be read to him. As they read, they came to the account of how Mordecai had saved the king's life. "What honor has Mordecai received?" the king asked. "Nothing," they replied. Just then, Haman entered the court to ask permission to hang Mordecai. Before he could speak, the king asked him, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Haman thought, "Surely the king means me." He answered, "Let the man be dressed in royal robes, ride on the king's horse, and be led through the city, proclaimed as one the king delights to honor." The king smiled. "Excellent," he said. "Do that for Mordecai the Jew." Haman's heart sank. He had to dress Mordecai in royal robes, place him on the king's horse, and lead him through the streets announcing his honor. Humiliation filled him. Later that day, Haman attended Esther's second banquet. Again, the king asked, "What is your request, Queen Esther?" This time, Esther spoke boldly. "If I have found favor with you, spare my life and the lives of my people. For we have been sold to be destroyed." The king was shocked. Who would dare to do such a thing? Esther pointed across the table. "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." The king stood up in fury and walked into the garden. Haman, terrified, fell at Esther's couch, begging for his life. When the king returned and saw Haman fallen near the queen, he cried out, "Will he even assault the queen in my presence?" It was over. Haman was taken away. One of the servants said, "There is a gallows at Haman's house, built for Mordecai." The king said, "Hang him on it." And so Haman was executed on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. The king gave Haman's estate to Queen Esther. Mordecai was promoted and given the king's signet ring. But the decree against the Jews still stood. Persian law could not be revoked. So the king allowed Esther and Mordecai to write a new decree, allowing the Jews to defend themselves. On the appointed day, instead of being destroyed, the Jews defeated those who attacked them. Mourning turned into celebration. Fear turned into joy. Mordecai rose to a high position in the kingdom, respected and honored. And the Jews established a new festival called Purim, to remember how sorrow was turned into gladness and despair into victory. Esther, the orphan girl, had become a courageous queen. She risked her life to save her people. And through her bravery, a nation was preserved. For such a time as this. Maybe you feel afraid right now. Maybe you feel pressured, attacked, or overlooked. But remember Esther. Before the problem appeared, God had already positioned her. And before your battle showed up, God was already working. You are not where you are by accident. You are there for a purpose. Even if your heart is shaking, take the step. God can turn every plan against you into victory.